you're regulating the market that you're trading on.
Exactly. And
you
like
run the casino.
And then we're supposed to act like money doesn't only corrupts Republicans? Give me a break.
And maybe government's there, not necessarily to change that system of wealth generation, but to ameliorate the collateral damage and allow more people into that fire hose of wealth generation.
But how do you maintain a strong middle class? You enforce regulations. You have to have these regulations in place in order to have a strong middle class, because if you don't have these regulations, you get billionaires that exploit that middle class and weaken it.
You can't simply just expect every citizen to work from the age of 15 to 75, sun up, sundown, and not die somewhere in between. That's just not a reality. It's just nice to have these two talk and to hear them talk. And, you know, there's a chance that, you know, like in I don't know what'll have to happen, but there's a chance that we see like some weird 2028 ticket where it's like Stewart Cortez or something like that, 2028. That could be epic. I don't know. I would much rather her just be the president, to tell you the truth. I would actually bet that this guy feels exactly the same. I don't think I love John, and I think John is passionate about so many things, but I don't think he wants to be president. He strikes me as the type of guy where it's like, hey, you know, it sounds like you'd be good for the nomination of Democrat. If, like, let's say this is his publicist being like, hey, I'm looking at polling and you're very popular, my guy. If you ran on, you know, on the Democratic ticket, if you ran a primary, you have a good chance of winning. I feel like he would be like, are you kidding me? I don't want to be fucking president, dude. That sounds terrible. Like, I think he's much more comfortable doing what he does.
Usually people that don't want a leadership role turn out to be the best leaders. So.
I know. I understand that too. Leaders are you know, chosen in some contexts, and you know, he might be the guy that we pick. But and I think if he ever got a nomination, I feel like he might be the guy that's like, well, this is what I'm clearly called to, and just accept it. But I don't think he would even run for a primary, because he would just rather not have his name in the hat to begin with. But yeah, well, we'll go ahead and get into this. They're going to tell us a little bit at the beginning about what these two talk about, but this was a good talk. I liked it. I'm not going to speed it up just because when I was editing, I noticed like, oh man, like when you and I paused to like talk about the video, it, you know, we're obviously talking at the speed that we talk. So I think if a person was watching this and they wanted to hear everybody at like 1.5 or 2 times speed, that way they're not accidentally taking these two to like 3 times speed. You know what I mean? If I'm already speeding these two up, it just makes for a worse video on YouTube. So we'll go ahead and jump in.
It is like,
that's so crazy.
It's crazy.
Could have, I guess, skipped to that.
All right, so we are going to get to our guests. We're very excited. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, welcome. You are the Congresswoman for New York's 14th District, the fighting 14th.
That's right. Thanks for having me.
700,000 strong, the Bronx and Queens. And I thank you so much for taking the time. How was your day yesterday? What did you do?
I kept my ass at home and
inside. Did you watch the proceedings, or did you try and avoid everything?
I watched his speech, and I watched them not be able to turn on the music for Carrie Underwood.
I felt so bad for her. She's just standing there, and they're like, "We're going to be the administration of competence. We're going to make everything work again, except the PA."
I was like, we are off to a great start here. But you know, I watched his remarks and leading up to it, and then I was out. I was like, all right, I've seen enough.
And nothing surprising. Was it strange to you? You know, one thing that struck me was sort of this sense that the Bidens or the Democrats wanted to preserve this decorum. You know, it was I have to say, it was such a surreal scene to see someone who had attempted what.
They're going to talk about this. I just gotta share some thoughts on this for a minute. Like, okay, okay, I get what they're saying, and they kind of toe the line that I'm about to toe as well. But I just got to get my words out there on this. Like, I think that for, you know, in the interest of the peaceful transfer of power, I think like the Bidens, I think Jill and Joe Biden, I think that it is their responsibility to pass the torch nicely and to show to have a bit of a display of class and decorum. And that's only because they're the outgoing administration. I think it is in their court. It is their responsibility as a part of the outgoing administration to sort of set the example. They are saying, yes, we recognize that the American people voted for this guy that we don't like. Yes, we called him yes, we called him a fascist. Yes, we called him the next Hitler. All of those things are still true, but they recognize that he won the election. He won the election fair and square, as much as we and them probably hate that. But they recognize that that's what the American people have chosen. And since this was a popular vote victory as well for the Trump administration, you can argue it's literally, we're doing this in the interest of giving the American people what they've said they wanted, regardless of what factors led to them making the voting for the reasons that they voted for him. I think that that's responsible, but I think that if you look at like Michelle Obama didn't attend, but Barack did. I think if Barack had skipped out, that would have been perfectly acceptable. I think anybody who's not in the previous administration not showing up, I think that is a valid form of protest, that you are saying, yes, I understand that I was a president. Yes, I understand Fox News was going to run away with it and be like, Obama didn't show up. Clinton didn't show up, whatever, but those guys were all there, right? And W was there. George W. Bush was there. Like,
I think it says a lot if like a Bush or Obama doesn't show up. One, because Bush was the previous Republican president that all these MAGA people have voted for before.
Right. They hate him. The MAGA people hate his guts.
Yeah. Well, because he plunged the economy into a recession, right?
They hate him for a lot of reasons. I bet you they would call him a rhino by today's standards, for real.
Probably, yeah. But whether they can say what they want about Obama, Obama is probably the best president of our generation so far.
Yeah, so far, for sure.
They can say whatever they want, but they still will acknowledge, okay, yeah, he was a good president. He pulled us out of the recession. He got the economy back going. You know, they can't argue that, and as much as they want to.
I think you're right about voters. I think that the Republican establishment and now Trump, like he will never give Obama a win. He will never claim that anything Obama did was good, because Trump rose in popularity because of his opposition to Obama. Before he was even, before the 2015 escalator fucking stunt that got him, into the race kind of thing.
Yeah. But I think with them if those kind of people don't show up, it says a lot about Trump. And I think that's important that those kind of people protest by not showing up.
Right. Like I love Obama too, but like him sitting there in the pew or whatever next to Trump and like just that was at Carter's funeral. I know. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm mixing up my things. But like him being there at the inauguration and like, being as, not being there like to let off a stink bomb in the place or something like it. Not being there to fucking somehow like make a statement that's like, I don't support this, it's a little like, man, it's not the best look. And it's too easy for the people on the right to say that it's anything other than this. It's just him being, it's him showing what we would call like governmental professionalism. It's him going with what traditions dictate you do. It's just the thing to do. Not that these times are different and you should do something different. Just this is the thing to do. I don't care. I think
Democrats also need to realize that Republicans don't care about professionalism anymore because they're not professional.
No, I agree with you. It's just
So
yeah.
we got to start playing their game, whether we want to or not. I mean, it's the fact of the matter. We need to play their game. We have to, show that we have a spine. Honestly, I think we might even need to throw a few fucking f-bombs at them, just so we can.
AOC's our gal. AOC's our
Yeah.
gal because she takes the filter off for this show.
Yeah, I think it's time for that. I think it's down. If Trump wants to take it to this level, let's knock it up a notch. Let's show them that we are the ones that don't give a fuck. So like, I think it's time for that.
Yeah. So yeah, I just it's I like they talk about like like hey, we understand the reasons for it probably, but like it is admittedly not the best look, and I kind of agree with that. But I don't know. I like the way they elaborate.
But he had attempted at the Capitol, be handed the reins of power, not just in a peaceful transfer, but one that seemed to want to honor the tea ceremony. And is there a middle ground between storming the Capitol and would you like oolong or throat coat? Like what are we doing?
I totally agree with it. But this is like a thing in the Democratic Party. This is a thing, particularly with the Democratic establishment. It is this like, I actually think it speaks a lot to some of the class differences and the class striation in the Democratic Party, because yesterday was also MLK Day.
Boy, did that get lost.
Yeah, yes, it did. And one of the things that MLK would talk about would talk about, this tension between people who value order over valuing justice. And I think there is this really strong attachment to order and business as usual. And I think also a lot of Democrats see that as a contrast. Like they're like, see, we're not them, so we are going to ask you what, kind of tea you want, as opposed to calling it like it is, which I think sometimes is seen as a little more gauche.
And that is in many ways kind of how you made your bones. And I think you're right. Like even when you think about, and not to get in the weeds, but so you were on the Oversight Committee, and I thought did really great work there. I mean, good questioning, the kind of questioning that I think would get to the gist of an issue or would break it down in terms of what the dynamics were. And when you wanted to be the ranking member of the Oversight Committee, the Democrats decided to hand it to, and nothing against Representative Connolly, but he's 74 years old. And it's almost as if they were saying, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez is really great at this, but he's 74. So there's nothing we can do. He's a 74-year-old man. He's first in line.
I mean, there are rules and structures and orders in the Democratic Party. Right. One that we know very well is seniority.
It needs to go away. It needs to go away. Connolly might be in the chair for 6 months, and then I don't want to be a dick. I think he's got throat cancer. He might succumb to his illness, right? And who knows? That could take a year and a half. It could take 3 months. We just don't know, right? At least I don't. But like, you pick somebody who you think can do well in the chair for a long time, and there's just an obvious person sitting right here. It's just so crazy.
Yeah. I think, she's perfect because I feel like she's gonna actually talk to Republicans like they're fucking children, and that's how they need to be talked to, like they're fucking children. We need to be like fucking strict ass parents, yelling at them and calling them stupid when they make a mistake. And hey, you need to think about what you're doing. Think about what you say. That's fucking stupid. And I think that's what we fucking need to do, because I think that's what Republicans, honestly, I think that's what I think a lot of Republicans would like, is like having their hand held and treated like children. Like that.
Republicans actually serving in Congress? Oh, you bet.
Like the
You bet.
voters especially.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know. I think that's
No,
that's,
I think they need some tough talk. They need some fucking tough talk with some fucking
So
reality.
I'm not saying you're wrong, because you are. You're correct, rather, because if you remember, I think it was at the Republican National Convention, you had Tucker Carlson get up there and do this creepy, daddy's coming home and you've been a bad girl and you need a spanking. And like, you had women in the audience like, woo, like as if Tucker Carlson is in any way, shape, or form a badass. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Like yes, like they seem to be keen on wanting that strongman type of leader. And they have fallen, the ones who are silly little bitches, they have fallen for right-wing populism, essentially, with Trump. I looked this up the other day. It's so easy to, because like I hear right-wing populism, left-wing populism. I hear them thrown around, but I've never really heard it defined. So when I looked up the definition, it became very obvious why it works. So populism is a range of political stances that emphasize the idea of the common people and often position this group in opposition to a perceived elite. So in the context of MAGA, what is the elite, right? It's the establishment. It's the Democratic establishment. It's
the
George Soros.
swamp.
So yeah, they've fallen for right-wing populism. So I think there's a chance. I think there's a chance that if you get somebody on the left who is just populist enough and you make this elite MAGA, they could really win. They could really win. I don't think Kamala Harris's campaign did a bad job at some sort of framing of populism. I
would argue they did do a bad job.
Really?
But
I think they were good at calling out MAGA. I just don't know how well they were at defining the common people. You know what I mean?
But I would contribute them doing a bad job with them not having enough time.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Like, I think if they'd have been able to run the campaign for like a full year under Harris instead of Biden, and switching it to Harris in the last, 100 days. Yeah, that would have been a lot. I think they could have really gotten a handle on their messaging and they would have had time to see the polling shift back to Trump and go, okay, what do we need to do to fix this? Rather than the polling shifted back to Trump and then being like, well, the election's in 2 weeks. So what do you do about that? So.
And they, it's a seniority rule type of system. And it is true. My run, it was a challenging of an entire system.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just about me or about again, I think Jerry's great, but it wasn't just about two individuals.
By the way, that was his campaign slogan.
Yeah.
I think Jerry's great.
Yeah. But it was about challenging a system and and a way of making decisions in the party. And the problem with that is that when you ask Democrats sometimes to challenge the way that they've been operating for decades, it's existential in some ways. Like, if we don't make decisions like this, what could we possibly do? What would result?
That's amazing. And doesn't Trump's rise and the way that he's operating make farce of that?
Yeah.
I mean, in some ways, he clowns them, that it doesn't look like a holding to protocol. It looks like submission. It doesn't in any way appear to be, they're maintaining the thing about the party that is ineffectual, that doesn't do anything. Yet that's the thing they seem to cling to the most.
Yeah. And not only that, but the other thing that makes it dangerous is that it makes us remarkably predictable. It makes the Democratic Party highly predictable in the decisions it's going to make, in the people that we're going to select, in the type of people we advance, in the way that we make decisions. And when we are highly predictable to the opposition, they will be 1, 2, 4 steps ahead. They know what Democrats are going to do.
You're talking on more on a procedural level, or do you mean also a kind of ideological level?
I think both.
What'd you say?
So yeah, they know our playbook.
Oh, yeah, the Republicans?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
I think they know what we're going to do politically. They know, how we position ourselves, even within internal squabbles. When there's a progressive or whatever you may want to say about it, they kind of can map us out, and because of that, they're able to operate around that. They'll say, "Oh yeah, they're going to do that," or "They're not going to do that." No, there was never any question about who or who wouldn't show up to the inauguration, for example, or how they would be received, I think.
Right.
And they know that. And so they're able to, to your point, Trump is able to run roughshod through these things because he has a lot of the party's number in terms of how they're going to operate. And I think that sometimes making certain calculated but unpredictable choices is a way that we can gives ourselves the upper hand.
And it also, I think, in some ways, it reveals some of the Democrats' posturing as performative. When you're creating apocalyptic messaging about a fascist,
Literally,
literally coming over and doing these things, and then when he wins, sitting down with watercress sandwiches and cream cheese and doing the whole 9 yards, it makes you wonder, well, did you believe any of the shit you were saying before?
exactly.
Or was that something, again, that was just a part of your message?
Right. I mean, I think what they're saying is not necessarily that they feel that way. They might. But kind of like I was talking earlier, it's just not a good look, right? Is when Biden and Kamala Harris and all them are literally, yes, they're sounding the signal correctly. They're saying, hey, this guy's a fascist. If you vote for him, you're literally, potentially plunging America into autocracy of some sort. And then they're out there having tea. It's like, okay, like, do you think this is really reinforcing that? I don't know.
How do you think that looks from the outside? Come on.
Right. For someone who doesn't understand the decorum of it either, who doesn't even like get the sort of like, yeah, I know why they do it. Someone who's, doesn't get that, they're going to be like, wow, yeah, it was almost like it was all bullshit. That's what they're going to say. So
I mean,
no,
you got to change in order to be effective. You can't keep on adapting the same strategy. You got to adopt change.
Yeah.
And I think this is where the Democrat Party is kind of like, in its own way, conservative. So they need to adopt change, especially things that like AOC presents. Like if you adopt some of the things that she presents, you're going to win a lot more elections. Like that's just the matter of fact, because AOC at least recognizes that, hey, like we need to change the way we do this, or we're not going to be effective against this opponent. And that's going to be with every election, whether it's with a House or a Senate election. Hey, you need to look at this person's strategy, adapt to their strategy. Do not stick to the decorum or the regular way of doing things, because they're just going to be a step ahead and they're going to take advantage of you.
Yeah, for sure. The Republicans have this strategy of like steamrolling whatever they can, right? That's just kind of their style. So,
and they can do that because they know what your next step is. That's how they're able to easily steamroll.
Right. They know so many Democrats are going to be a high road Democrat.
So much more dangerous than the first time around is exactly what you're saying. It's that he is much more normalized this time around than he was the first time. The first time, people were really on edge. They were on guard. They were very vigilant about any break that he would have with these norms. This time, the norms are becoming him. Like the norms are embracing him. Even these like little things that people may not, like everyday working people may not care about, but they are strong cultural signals. Oscar de la Renta, like dressing all of the women, like there's all these cultural symbols, right?
I see. Participating now in this when they wouldn't have participated in the past.
Exactly.
I see what you're saying.
So like all of these people that were scared before about like being associated with him from the most common basic level to the most elite level, they're all like they're all in now, because this is now a billionaire feeding frenzy. It is a kiss-ass race.
Man.
It is, how can I show how much fealty I have to Donald Trump in order to get my digs? And I think what's really important for people to understand, and like now and every day of this administration, is that you're being ripped off. You're being ripped off, dude. Like everyone is being ripped off. And he goes up there and he says what he wants to say, but he's just the quintessential New York con man.
I mean, for God's sakes, they launched meme coins the day, like I can remember in the first administration, you know, somebody would intimate something and the Democrats would scream, he violated the Hatch Act. And like everybody would go crazy, and then everybody have to look up the Hatch Act. And now these guys are literally just launching meme coins before the inauguration and piling up billions of dollars in wealth.
Yes.
It's kind of an incredible transformation. But again, it feels like, let me ask you this, because maybe this is a different way of looking at it, because in some ways it reveals, maybe to the cynical mind, the way that you believe this shit always has worked in the past. That the idea of, and I'll give you an example, the gentleman, Martin, who is running for Democratic National Committee chair, right? So he comes out and he says, hey man, we're not going to, you know, we're going to take money from the good billionaires, not the bad billionaires. And if money corrupts, and this happened in a conversation I had with Congresswoman Pelosi as well. She said, money corrupts the process. I said, well, you raised $35 million. And, oh, no, that's it. We can't disarm. And I said, well, how does money corrupt the Democrats? And she said, well, it doesn't. It corrupts them. Money's bad for them, but for us, it's good money. And isn't it almost better for us to now have this arrangement be explicit?
Yeah.
And be out in the open so that we understand this is how the world fucking works. This is how it goes round.
Yeah. I mean, but the thing is, like, it will still be hidden, even if you make it explicit. Like these meme coins. People do not really understand, nor should they, frankly, in a lot of ways, crypto. But if, God forbid, your job requires you to understand this, one of the things about crypto, I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of crypto is just scamming poor people and money laundering for wealthy people.
But doesn't that in some ways reflect the reality of our system in the first place? It's just a more grotesque, hyperbolic version of a system that's not working.
I think actually, like, when you look at how, for example, Putin has operated in Russia and the way they've been able to kind of take things over in these oligarchies, these kleptocracies, they prey on that exact logic, on that exact predicate, which is that everyone's corrupt and it's all corrupt. And so who gives a fuck? Sorry.
How dare you? At long last, have you known?
Seriously. Sling them things.
Well, just get yours. Right. And the problem with that is that we just entirely give up on a better world. Like that's the crux of it. It's to get good people to just give up and say, this is just how the world works now, and I might as well just throw up my hands. And the fact of the matter is, like, I know this is hard. Maybe this is something like I would say or whatever, but like I think it actually is important to understand that there are good people and they're like, and we should be doing good things. And when we decide to make that the norm, and when we decide to uphold it and value it, and even regardless of party, yeah, like don't vote for the people who are doing bad things, whether they're a Democrat or a Republican. When we decide to hold people to a higher standard, then things actually do get better.
But don't you have to know what you're up against? Don't you? You know, how do you fight an enemy that you haven't defined explicitly? And I'll give you even an example in a small thing, because I think this speaks to a larger, deeper issue that I think I want to get into with you, which is, you know, we all look at, oh, why did the Democrats fall flat? Was it, oh, Joe Biden got out too late, or Kamala Harris didn't have a time, or she, you know, whatever that was. But I think at its base level, it was a feeling that government is not being responsive to the discomfort of its people, right? Which breeds a certain feeling that there's this disconnect. And so we have to be able to define why. And I would put this into kind of a unifying theme of governance, which is for the Democrats, oftentimes they're so analog. They're so tied to Robert's Rules of Order, and they haven't realized, like, oh, it's fucking UFC out there now.
Yep.
Yes.
And we have to switch the way.
Yep.
But then you also have to define what that's going to mean for how you govern and what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Would that make sense?
I mean, I think so. Well, you're kind of preaching to the choir here, because
That's why I had you on.
I believe that we need to be a party of brawlers for the working class.
There you go.
And we have turned into a party that caters, and this is reflected in the electoral results. We have become a party of people who cater to like this weird, like almost people who call themselves upper middle class, but they're actually like kind of wealthy.
You're talking about me now, aren't you?
No, you're not middle class at all.
No, I meant wealthy. That's what I meant.
But it's like this suburban like kind of thing. And we've been chasing this affluent group and making all of these little concessions and hoping that working people don't notice.
How does that manifest? If you could give us an example of what those concessions might look like. So how, in a practical way, when you're chasing a different group, because in my mind, look, one of the biggest issues in my mind is over the last 40 or 50 years, labor has been devalued and capital has been elevated. So investment and finance is king, and labor is in many ways devalued. So in what way have you seen those kinds of, moves made?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most kind of famous one that comes to mind is Kyrsten Sinema doing her little curtsy when she voted down the $15 minimum wage. But it wasn't just her. Like, that was the most public expression of it. But there were a bunch of Democrats in the Senate behind her that also voted it down. And I mean, people are struggling so much right now. $15 an hour is nothing. This was the demand 10 years ago. To be honest, when you index it, it should be higher now.
Yes.
And it is nothing. And what people hear when there's all of these senators voting against it with all of these excuses of like, oh, well, how is it going to impact business? And first of all, these laws are very thoroughly, there's already dozens of compromises before you even get to the floor. It's not like it turns on the next day, like there's phasing periods, all this stuff.
And how do those compromises occur? Are those placed in because of who has the ear of the congressional people, the Senate and the House? This is the effect of big money and lobbying. Yes?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's really interesting. So you kind of mentioned this oversight race. So I didn't win the race. But one thing that did happen is that I've been assigned to a very powerful committee, the Energy and Commerce Committee.
Right.
And they're kind of known as one of 4 money committees in Congress.
They can do the appropriating, or they're
Okay.
just as a part of it, because it's not the appropriations, but it's
Yeah, it's
yeah.
so the 4 committees are financial services, that's
Mhm.
kind of governs Wall Street. You got ways and means, which is taxes. You have appropriations, which is like government financing all these programs. And then you have energy and commerce. So basically all of the regulation of energy, of healthcare, of tech, of all of it goes through this committee. And I've served in several other committees before. The day that the news came out that I got assigned to energy and commerce, my staff's email boxes blew up with lobbyists, just tons of lobbyists just flooding our emails.
Wow.
And it is literally because of this assignment that I got. And
Like, hey man, what's up? Like what
hey,
kind of was it? Like, hey, what's up, Congresswoman?
it's
Just
very
checking
like
in.
it's very like hello fellow kids, like, oh, I was at the Bernie rally like back in the day, like I'd
Oh
love
my
to
God.
chat. And
We've known so many salespeople. Like, just I know, you and I, our careers over the past handful of years, we've known so many salespeople that you recognize that sales pitch. You recognize
yeah.
that, like, hey, I know, hey, I think you're cool. I like this about you. It's just like you can see right through it instantly. Gosh, and I mean they had a lot of good back and forths here. I did this whole bit right here. I didn't talk about it, but it was just so good. This, Brawlers for the Working Class is just that just gets me so fucking excited. And that to me is the
Dude, this
the
is why
sort
I've been
of
telling you.
destination. That's the I'm not. Yeah, I haven't disagreed with you, but that is the.
Dude, I've been telling you, she's it. She's fucking it. I've been telling you for. You didn't agree with me at first. I told you.
So it's. I know, and it's. I think that the reason I do is not because of not necessarily because of anything like truthfully like realistic. I think it's the pessimist in me that says that she's not gonna, not ready to, perhaps not prepared to be our nominee in 2028. But part of me is also considered that sentiment may be coming from like the part of me that's grown up. I've been pretty politically active since like 2007 and 8, right?
Yeah.
When Obama was kind of coming about, and I supported Obama so much because I saw so much of the progressive mindset in him at the time, and I perceived him as a person who was going to be, just a clearing a path for progressive ideologies and things like universal healthcare, single payer, something like that, right? And she embodies that, I think, much more than Obama ever did.
Exactly.
And I just my concern is that I felt that in 2008 we were not. I felt that the country rather just wasn't ready for Obama. Unfortunately, I think rather they weren't ready for who Obama could have been. I really think that if he was a guy who won in 2016, for example, if he'd have just been a senator for, I don't know if he was hitting the end of his terms as senator. I don't think he was. I think he was just popular as a senator of Illinois. But if he'd have just been senator for a little while longer and then maybe run in like 2016 and we got him in 2016 instead of Trump, that'd have been crazy. I think he would have gotten so much good stuff done so fast, but but there's all sorts of what if scenarios you could play out. But
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but I think where Obama kind of fell flat was that he had these progressive ideas that he was throwing out while he was running, but he never got to accomplish them. Or
well, yeah,
he had. Well, let's face the reality. He did have really the opportunity to accomplish them. He just never did them because he went to that bipartisan, that bipartisan way. And people voted. He won so big in 08.
Yeah,
It was like
it was
we
huge.
forget how how big it was. Americans fucking want these progressive ideas. They do want them. Like, and I think that she's the one to do it. Like, I think she could pull out Obama-like victory. Like, look at that electoral vote. My God.
365. Yeah, he won it by 95 electoral votes, which is absurd. That is massive.
Jesus Christ. That is like fucking ridiculous. I mean, look at the states that were blue. Look at this.
Yeah. Iowa.
Yeah, Iowa, Florida.
Got the blue wall.
Like, people want it, dude. Like, people want progressive ideas. And what's going to happen is this Trump administration is going to fall fucking flat on his face with its incompetency. Is going to cause inflation to plunge us back into a recession and everything. It's going to fucking happen. Me and you both know it's going to fucking happen.
I know.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And
trying to prep for
here's it. Yeah, exactly. We're both prepping, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fucking, oh my God. She coming out in 2028. People are gonna be fucking sick and tired. Even people on the fucking right. Even people that were straight up MAGA. Because there's gonna be people that were straight up MAGA, hardcore MAGA. They're gonna get so fucked because, you know, they're poor. They're gonna get so fucked from his policies that they're gonna be like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And they're gonna flip the other way. And she's gonna be fucking there with her progressive ideas. Hey, we tried the extreme right MAGA way. Now it's time to try the extreme left, quote unquote, extreme left, AOC way. And I feel like that will, I think she would blow anybody out of the water. I don't care if it's JD Vance or not. She's gonna blow them out of the fucking water.
I see. Yeah, I think you're probably right. Let's see. Do Americans have a favorable? Yeah, like there's a little popularity, but like I don't know. There's surely a pop. You'll see popularity. I'm gonna just take out Vance here. Statista? Why not? So I feel like this is a bit skewed.
Yeah.
Don't know is a pretty big slice too. That's kind of weird.
Yeah.
So and I don't know. Statista is one of those weird ones. So we might not have a whole lot on like her popularity, but like at this point, she's not like she's not like been a national candidate for anything, right? Like nothing that the whole nation would really weigh in on. So I think that with somebody like her, I think we could see like a Bernie Sanders level of enthusiasm, but hopefully just the popularity of a Joe Biden. Like that's what I think we like for those two things, like Bernie Sanders enthusiasm because of her wildly, I shouldn't say wildly because that I think has too many negative connotations, but her somewhat aggressively progressive ideologies, and then that would create the enthusiasm, and then popularity of like she's just a good person, she's just a likable person, people recognize her, they know her name. AOC is a fucking a household name now, right? Like if she were to achieve those things, if she becomes the nominee in 2028, I am vowing right here, right now, that I will do everything I can in my power to get her elected. I will phone bank. I will door knock. I'll
do whatever's needed.
Suck somebody off. I don't care. I want AOC.
It's happening.
Want AOC to be president if she's nominated for sure. So let's hope we're getting that direction.
Dude, I will empty my fucking wallet. I swear to God.
It would be worth it. It would be worth it because we're working class. It would be us investing in our future. In a way.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like she's
it would be a grassroots campaign. I don't think she would take PAC money, and I think that she would campaign on not taking PAC money big time.
Yeah, as she should, and then she would and she's actually talks about the root of the fucking problems that everyday working class people like me and you face.
Yeah.
She understands them. You know why? Because she's actually been fucking there.
Was just there like 8 years ago or something like that,
Exactly.
right? Like 9 years ago. She was doing the same thing.
Oh my goodness, like, dude, like, yeah, it's got to happen. I'm telling you,
She might be the way. Like I said, it to me it depends on whether or not she can get a nomination.
I think she can.
I think she can. I just don't know that she will because the Democrats are the Democrats, and as she says, there's this this seniority thing. I just don't like they let Obama kind of jump the line. I don't know why they would not want to do that again because it obviously worked out in Obama, in the case of
It
Obama.
more than worked out.
It more than worked out for the Democrats.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a trifecta at 2 different points. They got the ACA, so much, but and I think she would do more. I think she would be better than Obama. I think she would be bipartisan, but also would call out bullshit unabashedly. Like she's less corporately influenced than Obama
Dude,
was.
I'm telling you, if she goes, she has a rally, let's say, and she's campaigning. I tell you, as soon as she drops 1 or 2 fucking F-bombs, she's gonna have so many people on her fucking side that it's gonna be.
I know.
It's gonna be hard to like. People are gonna be like, oh, what? F-bombs are winning elections now?
Right.
Like,
Well,
I'm telling you.
Trump has dropped them. He's very selective with them, but he's dropped them.
Yeah. Like it's time to it's time to fucking brawl, and that's how you fucking brawl. Like you need to be unapologetic and just straight up fucking no filter, just attacking problem after problem and attacking your opponent. And
she's a bulldog with a great smile. So like
yeah. Like I see her crushing whoever the Republicans put up, no matter who it is, crushing them completely.
I don't see her being. I don't see them being more popular. I just, it's to me, it's not getting her the nomination that's the problem. It's not her getting elected that's so much the problem. It's getting her the nomination. That's that's the challenging part.
I think that's where like people like me and you and people like Hutch and even Destiny, if he comes back and all that, like
we need to aggressively promote her. If
aggressively, we gotta be super aggressive because this next election cycle, they're not gonna be doing like the mainstream media shit. They're gonna be hitting podcasts and streamers and things like that because they realized what Trump figured out. They talked about it multiple times. They figured it out finally. Yes. That's how Trump won. Fucking. We got to push it hard. This is like where we come in. I know we only got like a couple of viewers on this shit every once in a while, but we got to do our part.
Now's the time to prepare for it. We got to have these conversations, so that if nothing else, so that people can begin to voice what they want to see, and I do hope we finally see progressivism becoming a proper priority for the Democratic Party. It needs to. It just has to be. They can't just keep pushing us aside because I think millennials and Gen Z I think are now the majority of the electorate, generally speaking.
Yeah, they are.
Compared to boomers and Gen X. Yeah.
Yeah, the boomers are dying off very rapidly. Gen X is about to start really dying off. So it's going to be our time. I think Republicans kind of know this, and this is why they're making this desperate move of having Trump in office and kind of getting this dictatorship thing kind of going, because I think they kind of know they're fucked in the future. Because let's be honest, like Gen Z is smarter than millennials, really, because they have had access to a technology on another level.
Broadly speaking,
Yeah, and us being millennials, like, we're smarter than Gen X by a mile because we had access to technology and know how to fucking use it.
Yes.
So, we're
Some
able
of
to
us
actually
had,
we know how to
some of our generation had parents who liked them too, so that helps.
yeah. So I mean, like we actually know how to research things and everything like that, unlike Gen X and Boomers.
Yes, we have better
So-
media literacy for sure. We're less likely to fall for propaganda, so
Yeah.
on and so forth.
Yeah. So I think that's why they're kind of like they pushed Trump these past decade. So we'll see what fucking happens, dude. Like I really think the AOC is the way.
That's my hope too, man. And it's like I said, it's my only concerns I think are probably pessimism, and pain of past, like really it's the pain of getting my hopes up for Bernie. And I think that's what it is. I think it's the PTSD of getting my hopes up for Bernie, donating to his campaign, putting his stickers on my shit, whatever, right? Like it was that, and then seeing him not be able to win a primary. I was just
maybe it's probably me being way too optimistic, maybe. I feel like people are going to actually learn their fucking lesson from this past election, and
I kind of hope that I think there's a number of lessons to be learned. I hope that the one that is learned is like, look, lean on the young people. Lean on like at the end of the day, you could sum up a lot of the lessons in that statement alone. Lean on the young people. Lean on the young people. Go on the alternative media. Use profanity. Speak your mind. Call out the bullshit when you really want to call it out. Don't show decorum to fucking fascists. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about.
Exactly.
Fuck them. Yeah. I like that.
And
I sent, by the way, real quick, I sent you a video on Discord.
I'm gonna check it out.
I just put the link in there just so that you can watch it if you want, but like I put the link in there because I want to pull it up after this, because what the guy said in that video is so fucking inspiring, so good. It's like a battle cry for us. We'll watch that after this.
Thing is like, sure. I am afforded, because I am supported by everyday people. Like the average donation to my campaign is like $17 or something like that. I don't take a dime of lobbyist money because I am afforded that independence, because everyday people support me. I don't have to, I'm under no pressure or obligation to take a single one of these meetings, not one. And I don't meet with lobbyists. It's just not really something that I do. And, if my constituents,
same reason you don't negotiate with terrorists,
or if everyday people are organizing and coming to my door, I'll open it. If I have policy questions, I will go and find the answers that I need for certain things, but I don't make these kinds of decisions. But these compromises that you mentioned, how they happen along the way, it is important for people to understand how Congress is structured. Like every bill that gets proposed gets assigned to a committee. That committee has a chair. That chair is the head honcho. And
especially in the House, it's all or nothing. I mean, like even if you have a 1-seat majority, you control all the business that goes through that committee.
That's right. And people don't really know that. But if you have, two, for example, this majority right now, especially because Trump is appointing some people, there's only 2 more Republicans or so right now in the House than there are Democrats. But if you just have 1 more or 2 more, you gain control of all the House committees. You decide what legislation gets voted on. You do all of it.
Who gets investigated, who's allowed to call witnesses, what those witnesses are. I mean, you control the entire operation.
Yeah. And the minority party just has to basically sit there for 2 years, and maybe you can rename a post office if a Republican's going to throw you a bone. But
all right.
It's pretty thin. That's how those compromises happen, because you need to win that vote. I think about back when Biden was trying to do Build Back Better, and we had these we had this massive prescription drug pricing provision in there that was going to make so many prescriptions more affordable for people. And there was 1 Democrat, and that bill went through Energy and Commerce. There was 1 Democrat, maybe 2, very beholden to industry. It lost by 1 vote, or it lost by 1 or 2 votes in that committee. And so that's how, like, all of these things get slowly chipped away because of that process. And that's why one of the things that we say is like, yes, voting for Democratic majorities is important, but it's really about the kind of Democrat that you're sending. And one of the things I've learned a lot in the House is like, there's so many frustrations, understandably, but also, the popularity of Congress is super low, but a lot of people actually like their individual member of Congress. And that's part of the story that we have here too, because a lot of people are just very, where they're very beholden to a set of incentives that are not always just the people who voted for them.
Right. And the people who voted for them rarely get the access. I thought it was a stark moment at the inauguration yesterday. Amy Klobuchar was up and, she gave that first speech. And it began with this sort of ode to the working man. Oh, the working man, the construction workers who built this city, the railroad engineers who get, and it was this large ode to the working man. Not one of them in the room.
Literally.
Not even allowed in.
And you've got like Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos and
right.
TikTok CEO right behind you. Yeah, no, it's like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here?
But it makes it seem like a performance. This is why I think people lose that faith. And I think that ultimately this idea that, well, people just need to have better union.
John, I'm going to give you a tip, John. Just so that you can get I'm sure you get right wingers in your comments that bug you about this. Maybe you like it. But one quick tip, John. To me, this space in your wall right here looks like a perfect place to put your American flag. I'm just going to throw that out.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, put it there, John. My goodness.
It being behind here is a little sad.
Yeah. Put that flag there.
Just stick it right there. I don't know. You think you got a thermostat, something here? Wires, go for it. I'm sure you won't hit them. You'll be fine.
Unions, and why is it incumbent upon working people? Maybe this is a shift, and maybe this is an interesting way to kind of talk about where do the Democrats go ideologically, right? Because this fire hose of kind of oligarchs isn't going to be ending. And it seems like unionization, while a really powerful tool, is a slow moving one, and certainly one that's been eroded. Mm-hmm. Is maybe the new economic theory a way to tap into that fire hose? That money is built by labor, but labor does not participate like a shareholder. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is there a way, and this is obviously beyond my pay grade, but to start shifting the conversation beyond like, hey man, just give us a minimum wage raise, and start think about the ways that these CEOs and these oligarchs are remunerated, right? It's bonuses, it's stock buybacks, so how do we get labor to not just live on the crumbs that they are afforded, but to participate in that fire hose, that $50 trillion growth in wealth over these last 4 years?
I mean, there are tons of structural things that we can do. And there are lots and lots of ways to get a bite at that apple. I think kind of the knot that we have to untie is how do we build the power to actually implement those things? Like when it comes to labor getting that share, that's not a hard problem to solve. There are everything from kind of Elizabeth Warren and a lot of other folks saying, labor should have board seats in corporations, to even more lefty, even, I mean, it's all lefty, but even like other things.
But why is it like even when it's called lefty, like in the rest of the world, it's like center right.
It's normal.
Like it's normal.
Yeah,
it's
right.
The idea, when we talk about, how about everybody like can go to a doctor, and you're like, what are you, a communist? And you're like, no, that's the whole world does that.
Well, that's
except
the thing.
us.
Our country is remarkably propagandized. Like we are remarkably propagandized. And that's what I'm talking about. A lot of working class people voted for Donald Trump.
Sure. I mean, he gained a tremendous amount in that area.
he gained a tremendous amount in that area. They voted for him despite the fact that he has a Supreme Court that guts labor rights, that they are overwhelmingly opposed to raising a minimum wage, that they are really, that they're gutting the civil rights around working people and organizing, let alone women and voting rights and for Black folks and immigrants. Like, put all of that aside, just on a working class level, we have elected the foxes for the hen house to run the hen house. And so that is like something that we're going to have to confront, because what Zuckerberg and Bezos and all these people sitting behind them, they don't just represent billionaires. They represent all of the communication platforms that people use in the United States. So the TikTok CEO is saying, we work for Trump. Meta, Instagram, and Facebook CEO is saying, we work for Trump. Of course, you've got Elon with his fucking jumping around on a stage. All of them are saying we
just gave away $1 million to individuals in Pennsylvania just to
which is illegal.
Which is like not legal, but
right. But isn't that the point though? They would rather ask for forgiveness than permission. And isn't a lot of this based on, when we say it's the foxes now guarding the hen house, but isn't it the people in the hen house going, where are my eggs?
Yeah.
You promised me eggs and you guys haven't delivered. Now you did something really interesting, I thought, after the election. And this is, I think, why I think the right gives you respect. And also I think is a little trepidatious about you, in that you kind of understand these new media platforms, and you went on one of them, and it was either TikTok or Instagram or one, after the election, because you outperformed the Democrats in your district. And there were people that voted for you and voted for Trump, and you wanted to know why. And in doing that, what came back to you? Was it anything revelatory or illuminating about the process by which their frustration with people that are speaking the language of their struggle but not delivering on their struggle led them to, well, you know what? Fuck it. Let's just cut through all the red tape and go with a more executive version of all of this.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a couple of things. One is that, especially for people who voted for Trump and voted for me, they see two people that are fundamentally anti-establishment, two people that do not respect a rule if the rule does not lead to an outcome, like a positive outcome. And one of the things that I really kind of sit with is the level to which also people believe in I think a shift that we've seen is that people want to hear directly from a politician. And importantly, and this is also, dicey territory, I think, they will believe what the politician says from themselves, right?
If they hear it from you.
If they hear it from me, and the same thing, like if they hear it from Trump. Like Trump went around. I don't think people, understandably, like if you don't like Trump, you probably didn't listen to him on the campaign trail. But this was a very different Trump that was on the campaign trail. And even if you roll back his election night speech and his victory speech, when he talks about immigration, for example, my district is like 60% immigrant families. And so when you hear him, he was very clear on the campaign trail saying, we're only going to go after the criminals, and we're not going to go after people who came here the right way. And he is lying through his teeth, but that is what he is saying. And so people believe it. It's the same thing with the Project 2025 stuff. When he was like, that's not me.
Right.
We're not going to do that. People will say, he said it's not him. He said he's only going to go after the quote unquote criminals, which they believe everyone who came here who is undocumented is a criminal. And not only that, but on paper, they say they want to deport 20 million people. There's only 14 million undocumented people in the United States. So they're going to have to proactively strip status from 6 million people who are here legally. in a legal fashion in order to meet that number. And so like this is actually where I think the collapse of journalism, which again, Bezos runs the Post. You've got they have the newspapers too.
The guy from the LA Times was like, "Hey man, what do you guys want us to put in the paper?"
Yeah. LA Times is a billionaire publication. Washington Post was a billionaire publication. New York Times is like taking L's left and right. Like you have Elon doing a Nazi salute yesterday, and they're like, he did this
That was weird.
that was, controversial, flagellation. Like, what are you people doing? What utility do you have right now? And
all these media apparatuses are completely compromised.
Yeah, it's really scary. And like I don't feel that there's been a big change to TikTok yet, but like depending on
it's coming.
Well, that's what I'm saying is like depending on who their US buyer is. And I don't think that the US whoever puts up a bid for TikTok isn't going to do so without Trump's blessing. Period. And he's gonna try to ensure and arrange that someone takes majority control of TikTok or ownership of TikTok. He's gonna make sure someone does that who's got his best interest in mind. Period. End of. And I that when that day comes, I'm like I'm fucking gone. Like I'm outie.
Do we leave or do we fight for it? Because here's the thing: is that algorithm's still going to exist? And we can fucking fight for it.
That's a good question. That's a good. I don't think. Yeah, it's just like I don't know, man.
They'll lose money if they suppress it. If they suppress that algorithm and like try to, then it becomes an investment and wasn't even worthwhile in the beginning. Because
there's some calculus to be done about like how many. What for me it'll kind of come down to. It'll come down to like, okay, like, what types of voices are they going to suppress or maybe even outright censor? What terms are they going to, and this is already kind of looking sketchy. Like, I want to, if you did.
But what's good though, I don't know if you're seeing this, but people are aware of the sketchiness.
Yes.
Like, on TikTok. They are very aware. You're not going to squeeze by them easy.
Right. Are you seeing and hearing posts about cute winter boots?
Oh yeah, I am all in that.
All right. Yeah, dude. Like I had to like look it up on like Reddit or something the other day just to make sure I knew, but I was like I think I'm picking up what they're putting down. I just want to be like certain that I'm not like suddenly a furry now or some shit, right? Like, I just didn't want to like accidentally join the wrong community just because I was getting some posts about it. So like I Googled it. I'm like, okay, yeah, I see. It's resistance talk, it's stuff that I'm all about. So, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens to the platform when they do get their US buyer. And the way I phrased it earlier is like, I don't think Trump's, I don't think his, trade commissioner, his FTC, I don't think they're going to be too, hawkish towards, any sort of monopolistic or antitrust things. So maybe it will be Elon, and maybe he will just destroy TikTok like he's destroyed Twitter. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
That very well could happen. It could be something like that bad. Crazy. We'll just have to see. But yeah, I'm so far I haven't seen much to my algorithm. The one thing I will say, and other people had this happen to them too, is that TikTok unfollowed me from not Lev, that's his dad, from Aaron Parnas.
Oh yeah, same thing to me.
Which is I was like interesting, and I don't know if it's just because he rose so fast that they were alleging like, oh, he might have botted some follows, so we just had to strip like X amount of follows after a certain day. I don't know. They might use some bullshit excuse like that, but like it's like, no, you don't just fucking unfollow me without me. Like that's just weird. That's just dumb. So
yeah.
That is meshing together. And so, but the point is like, this is not all doom and gloom. I think that it highlights ways that we can fight back.
That's
and one of the things that we need to do is to talk to people directly. Also, guess what? There need to be Democrats who walk the walk and talk the talk. There is an insane amount of hypocrisy. And the hypocrisy is what gets exploited to use the cynicism. And wherever there's a hypocritical window, for example, I think one of the most biggest examples of this is insider trading in Congress.
Yes.
Like,
Dude, I don't I don't know if I like, do I give snaps? I don't know what the kids do anymore, but like, dude,
it's
yes.
it is
Wow,
like
that's so crazy.
it's so
It's
crazy.
crazy.
It's crazy. I mean, like that's the and this is the thing. It's like people think that everyday people are stupid. I'm like,
Yeah.
do you all really think that
Yeah.
people don't see this shit? Like,
They sit on a committee, they get information about a drug or a contract or a thing. They immediately make a call. The stockbroker changes things, and their portfolio swells.
explodes. It explodes.
What are we doing?
And you're doing this on public trust,
Right.
on like taxpayer
Pretty
finance
openly.
public
Pretty openly.
Oh yeah, they don't even hide it.
facilities. Like it, of course,
You're regulating the market that you're trading on.
exactly. And
You
like
run
this,
the casino.
and then we're supposed to act like money doesn't only corrupts Republicans. Give me
Yeah.
a fucking break.
We're lucky we're not in the same room because I think we might have high-fived. I really think we may have disturbingly high-fived in that moment.
And I think sometimes what my colleagues and like other people in the party don't understand is that the insider trading that happens in Congress, it explodes the cynicism that fuels the right. It doesn't benefit us. It benefits Republicans because they make no bones about the fact that they are here, about what class they are here to serve. In fact, Republicans are far more honest in this respect sometimes, which is that they're here to serve the billionaire class and they make decisions very publicly to serve that billionaire class.
Oh, but they're performing a populist dance in a lot of ways. But doesn't it though, and this is the thing where it kind of gets tricky because what the right's diagnosis is in many ways correct. What Trump is saying is the system is rigged.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that's what we're saying, which is, yeah, it's rigged. Now, I don't believe his remedy is correct. I don't believe he's honest about where he's unrigging it. I think he's not draining the swamp. He's co-opting it. He wants the deed to the swamp so that he can continue to funnel. I mean, that, meme coin being just the tip of the iceberg there. But isn't that what is driving them, is that sense that, and they are, I think, not wrong, the system is rigged.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's completely rigged. And the frustrations at that are why working people want to elect people who seek to not, go along to get along.
But the question is, they're viewing it like, oh, it's the undocumented migrants that are rigging the system and not the 6 billionaire oligarchs that are sitting in the front row at the inauguration. To me, that's the disconnect.
That's exactly right. And like the thing
Problem
is that when we talk
people
about
truly don't
solidarity,
fathom how much money those billionaires have.
They don't. Like I haven't seen these posts in a minute, but I was seeing TikTok posts about where they were using like grains of rice to compare.
So there's a website. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but there's a website that uses the pixels on your phone. It'll work on your computer. Like it uses the pixels to like demonstrate how much wealth Elon Musk has. I can't remember what the name of the website is. And it might be then.
You versus a billionaire, an interactive perspective on wealth.
It's one of those. Nah, that ain't it.
That's sketchy.
Yeah, that ain't it. Go back to the top. It might be one of the top ones. Engaging data was
Oh, yeah.
your screen. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Click on that. Let's see some people. People need to see this.
Scroll or swipe to the right. You can also press L or D. Okay. Single pixel in the center of the circle represents $1,000. Okay. The square represents the median U.S. annual household income. Okay. $1 million. That's a pretty good size square. These squares represent the average estimated lifetime earnings of college graduates. Geez, that's just to note, that's a huge gap there between women making. And I guess some of that, could be based on just tradition, who might be like a stay-at-home parent, whatever. It's hard to say. But
Yeah.
This square represents $11 million. That's net worth of 1% of U.S. households. Jesus Christ. 43 million and net worth of 0.1%. That represents $100 million. This is $100 million, just this big ass rectangle here.
Yeah.
And like oops. Oh shit. I scrolled the wrong way. It's fine, whatever. Oh my God. Dude, yeah, this is the scroll bar here.
Yeah. We're not the Elon Musk yet. Look, there's Oprah Winfrey right there.
Oh my God. How fast can I do this? This is terrible.
It's supposed to be done on a phone. That's what's mostly done for.
I'm shift scrolling with my mouse. Now that's way better. Yeah, dude. Like,
look at the percentage of us. 25%. That's just Musk.
Yeah. Global electric vehicle market. He has more money than the entire market that he sells his Teslas in. There's Bezos, 253. Yep. Still an absolutely just disgusting
not even 60%.
Amount of money.
Yeah. What's that one?
Michigan lifetime salary. The
whole state of Michigan.
Oh. Well, I don't know what that means. 40 years. No, this is like okay. Average. This must be an average.
Wow.
Total annual salary of entire Michigan workforce. I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
4.3 million people. So he's worth more money than what the entire state of Michigan makes in a year. Software developers, which is like they already make a shitload more money than like say me.
Yeah. Entire state of California. Good Lord.
This is stupid. I mean, I know it's like, yeah, this is this is one unique way. Like, I mean, I've seen the grains of rice comparison, and that's just absurd. Total annual U.S. consumer spending on vehicle fuel on fucking gas, dude.
Yeah.
You could literally buy us gas for a year.
There you go.
That's astonishing, dude. Truly astonishing.
Isn't that fucking nuts?
that is absolutely nuts. Wow. Just wow.
The reason why solidarity is, when we build that, is such an antidote to kleptocracy and corruption. I think something that's really important for people to understand, and that's something that I also think the left can do a better job at, is also explaining why this solidarity is important, not just on moral grounds, but this is our strategy for defeating the billionaire class, because they are going to say your wages are low because of an immigrant. And by the way, you're going to drive down, wait until there's no immigrants to do your roofing, to do agricultural work in the United States, and you're going to have some, like, I don't even know, some UCLA alum that's doing your vegetables.
Well, there are people here in this country who will do work for money that Americans won't do work for, who are exploited by, the system.
They are exploited. They are absolutely exploited. But the thing is that when we allow ourselves to constantly be distracted by these culture wars around trans people, around like it's a new thing every day. But I think the answer isn't that we just let those people be attacked. It's that we say, what are you doing, man? Like, I think we need to make standing up for these folks just like such an afterthought that it's not even a debate. Like, we need to understand and see the bait for what it is, but we don't take the bait by letting those rights just erode and go by the wayside.
But how do you battle certain, like the common sense thing? I'll give you an example. Like when they say, oh, there's an undocumented immigrant who has committed a crime.
Mm-hmm.
And common sense would tell you, yeah, that person has lost their ability to be here and should be sent back. And yet you would find there are some Democrats who would disagree with that. Or, isn't there another form of progressivism that is more muscular, that has a certain amount of common sense, law and order aspect to it that can be fashioned as a way forward?
Yeah.
That doesn't get saddled with some of these seemingly nonsensical positions.
Yeah. Well, let's take the Lake and Riley Act, for example, which just passed in the Senate, which is this kind of encapsulates a lot of what you just said. Lake and Riley Act, on its face, Republicans brought this and they say, well, if you are, by the way, Lake and Riley is a victim of a horrific crime, horrible murder by I believe an asylum seeker or an undocumented person.
Right. But apparently who had like a criminal record.
Yes.
Who had committed crimes.
Now, first and foremost, her family explicitly asked that her name not be politicized or used or wielded in this way. And every time I see this, it's just so disgusting to me that they just trampled on this family's wishes and decided to do this. But anyways, so you have this act that's brought forth, and Republicans say,
they don't give a fuck. They have no morals.
Well, this person, if you have a criminal record, if you've, sexually assaulted somebody, you should be deported. And so that's the guise of this bill, right? And they said, so that should be the law. Except that's not what's in this law, because that is existing U.S. law. It is existing U.S. law.
Why isn't it done then?
Duh.
And well, I mean, I think there are individual cases where I'm not sure, but this is what the right does. They exploit these very narrow individual cases. But the existing law in the United States is that if you are undocumented and you commit a crime, you are put on priority number 1 for deportation. That is standing U.S. law.
And it's not like we don't deport a lot of people, even in Democratic administrations.
Right.
We deport a ton.
Now, here's what Lake and Riley does, actually, is that they use that guise to then dramatically erode constitutional rights in the United States tucked into that bill.
No due process then for someone who is an asylum seeker.
So now in this bill, all you need to do is be accused of a crime. And you don't have to be fully undocumented. It works against dreamers too. So you could be here. You could have lawful,
So they take a narrow common sense issue, and then what they do is they expand the margins out on it to things that would not be common sense. Okay.
This is Patriot Act all over again.
Right.
This is using this guise of national security to erode not just the civil rights of this population, but your civil rights too. And it makes us all, it's kind of like when they did these 100-mile border security zones, they're doing surveillance on everybody, on the vast majority of the United States, because most people, believe it or not, live within 100 miles of some kind of border, the southern border, the northern border, or both, either coast.
Oh, I got Delaware breathing down my neck over here.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're sending up my way.
And so this is the thing that we need to be aware of, but it's also something that you haven't heard this because Democrats are very scared on these kinds of issues. Democrats are vulnerable on issues of immigration. And so the response, instead of being more full-throated and telling people how they're being conned, is to kind of just be quiet about it and to go along with it.
So let's take your energy. Let's take the passion that you have for these issues. And let's think about, because right now the Democrats are almost fully defined by their positions on Trump, as opposed to, people are thirsty for a leadership. And the Democrats, I think, have had a really difficult time responding to that thirst, responding to that action. So what is the process then of redefining what this party is, what it represents moving forward? And are there leaders there? It is sclerotic. I mean, it is a party in real confusion. And I don't know, I can't put my finger on. It reminds me of the Republicans in 2012, where there was just, when Trump came into that first 2016 primary, I mean, he just like flicking his finger, not Jeb Bush. Yeah, nice. Boom, done. Like,
Yeah.
And I think the Democrats are vulnerable to that. So what is the process of redefining and recapturing what this party is?
Well, I think we need a real agenda. If you've noticed, the Democratic Party has not really had a platform with any sort of new.
I have noticed.
Yeah, there's no platform. I mean, there's technically a platform that gets voted out. This is the crux of it. If you ask a working class American or just any normal American, what is a Democrat? What do they stand for? They will not really be able to give you a clear answer. And so our party needs a clear and strong agenda. I think one of the problems is that the internal incentives within the Democratic Party are quite contrary to a clear, full-throated agenda. And that's why I think you notice, like, Biden on his way out, it was only on his way out that he was like, this country's controlled by oligarchs. Like, we could have used that energy a couple years ago.
No shit.
Well, I mean, what he did on the way out, I really thought it was incredibly disappointing. On the way out, he's like, we're controlled by oligarchs, women are people, and I'm going to make sure that my family has a life raft. And I just thought, boy, what and I have fondness for him, and he was certainly incredibly important to a bill that was very important to me that that went through. But I just thought, again, you just made this whole thing look like a show, like a performance, and that you've been not clear with us over 4 years. And on your way out, you're just going to tell the truth, which is our legal system doesn't serve anybody, and I'm just going to make sure my family's protected.
Yeah, and I think it's one of these things where people, I do think that people want rule breakers in this moment.
Purposeful rule. I think
Purposeful
I don't think we're looking
not
for
like,
nihilists. I think we're looking for a purposeful recapturing of the thrust. Does it start, Congresswoman, with what you did, which is kind of a customer service? I think what the Democrats have lost is the reality of people's lives when you think about that cradle to grave journey and where the bottleneck pressures are, that weird working class, middle class squeeze of, I've worked really hard, I've saved some money, but now I got to blow most of it on my kids' college while my parents need health care and other things, and those costs are soaring. And that's going to put me under by the time I get up to that age when I'm 60 years old. Isn't that journey the absolute priority of any government that's going to listen to the discomfort of the way its people live?
Of course. Of course. This is where I think when you talk about responsiveness, it's that a lot of people propose these things that kind of nibble around the edges, but don't actually structurally address the problem. And so they'll say, okay, we're going to do a little bit of Medicare reform here. That doesn't fix the problem. That doesn't fix the fact that you aren't paid a living wage from the jump, from the time you're 15 years old, getting your first job at McDonald's or Baskin Robbins or wherever it is. Like, we don't have money. We need money. So that doesn't solve that problem. It doesn't solve the fact that the price of college is just skyrocketing year over year, and it's increasingly becoming something that's only accessible for more and more elite people as time goes on. It doesn't fix the fact that then in order to that degree, yes, it still does give you a ticket to a more privileged class. I know there's a lot of discussion about is college worth, and also the trades too. The trades are incredibly important as well. But like, these are still like kind of tickets to a more so people are getting left behind at every single stage of life. And what the Democratic response has been is like, oh, let's expand Pell Grants a little bit, and no, we need tuition.
Or even, the Obamacare, which is in many ways just a giant benefit to insurance companies, which is the government just saying, we'll give you a little bit of access to this shitty system that you haven't been satisfied with. And we'll just make sure that to get an insurance company to take you on, if you're considered a poor risk, we'll just pay them
at
to
the
do
end
that.
of the day. Like, and the stuff that's crazy to me is like, the answers are stuff like we're just asking for things that our parents and our grandparents had, like
yes,
tuition-free public colleges and universities, not new.
That's where my parents went to City College in New York. It was free. This was the 1940s. It's free.
That's right. We should be lowering the age of Medicare. I want the age of Medicare to be lowered to 0, but even you bring it to 50 and you will be able to make tons and tons of people far more secure in their lives, which, by the way, helps their kids because you're working your ass off to get your parents health care because they're not 65 yet.
Now, to make that argument, is job one then to be honest about the deliverables that a government can offer, or about how we need almost, when they talk about moonshots, we need a bureaucratic moonshot, because in truth, the way that the government operates right now is counterintuitive and counterfactual to all best practices. And there is such opportunity here, Congresswoman. I feel it in your voice. I feel the frustration that you feel being down there. I've experienced it myself. I have to tell you, like, when we were down there trying to do legislation, I was at times just stunned at what you had talked about earlier, which is that we have to go through regular order. And it was interesting to me, what I discovered to some respect is, and this is a terrible thing to probably say, but Congress can be bullied.
Yeah, no.
By righteousness and by doing the right thing. Like, as long as they feel like you're not going to go away and you're going to keep that light on them, Mitch McConnell can be.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
It's a very strange feeling to have that.
And also, people are very responsive to incentives. I think sometimes people are rightfully sometimes frustrated at like some of the creep towards pro business and capital and this turn away from labor.
And does this system require an entrenched underclass to work properly? The way I've always looked at it is, government can be an effective check. Capitalism is the system we've chosen, and it certainly is a wealth generation system, but it also has collateral damage along the way. It has destructive things that are built into its function, and maybe government's there, not necessarily to change that system of wealth generation, but to ameliorate the collateral damage and allow more people into that fire hose of wealth generation.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid question.
Yeah, capitalism only works.
Your view
only works whenever it's regulated. It's the only time it ever works.
Yeah.
Outside of that, it eats itself.
Right.
So that's how it ends up destroying countries.
Right.
So I don't see how people. It's really a lack of education on these matters. Like, if you want success, let's take the 1950s, for example. 1950s was probably about the time that the middle class was at its strongest, which is the backbone of capitalism, is the middle class. If you do not have a strong middle class for capitalism, then capitalism fails. It falters like it is now. It's faltering. That's why everybody's struggling right now, because the middle class is very weak. But how do you maintain a strong middle class? You enforce regulations. You have to have these regulations in place in order to have a strong middle class, because if you don't have these regulations, you get billionaires that exploit that middle class and weaken it and take money from it. it's very, very simple. Like, I know people like hate the idea of socialism, like, but you don't have to take the economic parts of socialism. You can throw that shit out the fucking door. You can just take the governmental parts of socialism, and you have a some sort of democratic socialism where you still elect officials, which which kind of makes the United States really unique in a way, like where socialism could really thrive and actually work for the people in a very strong way, because we have a constitutional democratic republic, right?
Right.
We have a constitution that governs, that has a set of rules on what we're allowed to do and what we can do and everything like that. It's extremely hard to change that. As much as Trump wants to change it, he can't. It's literally impossible for him to do so. Like, he doesn't have the votes anywhere to do so. But the with us being able to elect our representatives, as long as we keep on electing representatives that are for us and want to keep on implementing the strong social safety nets, and take the strong social safety nets that we have and strengthening them and making them more efficient and everything like that, as long as we do that, the capitalism will take care of itself. We'll make so much fucking money, and we will have a strong middle class, and new ideas will be popping out of that middle class like crazy. Like back in like the 1950s, that's how we got fucking plastic. God damn it! Like, because some middle class fucking genius came up with the idea of fucking plastic.
Well, sadly, plastic hasn't aged well in terms of
Yeah,
environmental impact, but
correct.
That's the nature of the human experiment, is learning and implementing new. I mean, yeah,
exactly.
I totally agree that, like, capitalism in itself is not inherently bad. Capitalism is in some, it's a driver for innovation. It's a driver for technology in a lot of ways. And yes, as you've mentioned, it's just that capitalism works best when it has definitive and rigid guardrails that just can't be bowled over super easily. A very fair tax revenue system for the government that is operating under this capitalistic economy, and social safety nets so that people aren't just left out in the cold when they don't have a job. You can't simply just expect every citizen to work from the age of 15 to 75, sun up, sundown, and not die somewhere in between. That's just not a reality. And that the labor laws that we didn't used to have were, capitalism is a lot more regulated today than a lot of people, I'm sure realize, because, if you only grew up in a certain time frame, you're not always made aware of, like, the early 1900s where, like, you had literal children working 12-hour days in like a factory, right? Like, we used to have like basically like sweatshops and shit. Like, the US has not always had a good history of being kind to labor, but so many of these other systems out there show us that you can have the benefits of capitalism. You can have that driver for technology and the driver for innovation. You can have the line always going up. You can have your GDP increase. You can have your stock markets perform well, but you can also have good social safety programs. Billionaires, we'll just say, just because other countries don't have billionaires, you'll have really rich people paying their fair share in taxes. If you make an absurd amount of money, you should pay an absurd amount in taxes. That's just plain and simple.
It's common sense.
It is super common sense. And I think that people like AOC can really communicate that, whether literally or not is kind of a big question on, because we know Americans' literacy is kind of fucked up these days. Like, I feel like she can find a way to explain that, hey, like, we can keep being the country we know we are, that we want to be. We can still be Americans, and we can still appreciate and benefit from capital, but we got to have some realistic guardrails here, and we got to have some good social safety programs so that no one is left out in the cold. You being unable to work for whatever reason should not mean you don't have a roof over your head, plain and simple, right? I don't, these are all very normal things. Yeah. And I mean, guys as wealthy as Elon Musk could end poverty in this country overnight. He really could.
Yeah. I mean, I think the top marginal tax rate in like the 1950s was 91%. Like the wealthiest people in the country paid upwards to 91% in taxes.
As they should. If Elon Musk paid
and that's 91%,
whenever, he would still have what, $40 billion? That's absurd.
An absurd amount of money still. But like that, what's crazy about that is that like that's whenever like the US really started to experience its huge amounts of growth, was in the 1950s.
Post World War II manufacturing boom.
Yeah.
A victory over the Nazis was very optimistic for a lot of folks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like that, those tax rates are insane. I think the top marginal tax rate now is like 37%. Like that's how much it's been eroded. That's how much it's been eroded. It's fucking ridiculous. And that's what everybody wants to go back to. They want to go back to like that huge economic growth where everybody owned a home and everything like that.
Yes.
But those times were whenever we taxed the fuck out of the rich.
Yes, exactly.
We taxed the fuck out of them assholes.
I think FDR was the reason that, I don't know if it was still 91% in the 50s, but I know it was in the 30s under FDR. I know for a fact that it was like a 90% plus for the
I know for a fact, I know for a fact that peaked at 91% in the 1950s.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. Cool. I'm glad you can speak to that.
But I mean, that's just like, it's basic, like, you can literally just Google these things and look them up. Now, top marginal tax rate isn't like the exact tax rate that all those people like, you know, actually paid. There's caveats to that and deductions and all kinds of other bullshit.
Like, and that'll take legislation over time to close those loopholes, and they'll hopefully we'll do it one day. Hopefully we'll do it one day.
Yeah, but they're still taxing the fuck out of the rich, which is what we need to do.
Yep, I agree with you.
Of the world, it is government either exists to enforce that system and then try to kind of soften the consequences of it. And that is defined by the people that we send to represent us, that outcome. But I do think that people respond, and elected officials respond to those incentives, as you mentioned. Not only are they, responsive to sunlight, money isn't the only rule here. At the end of the day, people who are in Congress want to return to Congress. And the reason it's true. And then the reason that the Republicans have so much enforcement is because they're more scared of a primary than they are of a general election for multiple reasons. One, their base is highly mobilized. Their base is highly engaged. And so if you can survive a primary, their theory of change is that you will be able, for the most part, be able to survive a general election, which is I would say true for maybe 90 to 95% of all seats in Congress. There are very, very few swing seats left in America. Republicans and this whole system has been gerrymandered that the number of swing seats is so low. So for everybody else, your only election is a primary election. Billionaires fuel and they fund primary challenges. Trump openly talks about that to keep everyone in line. But we all do have a choice. And the more choices we have that are more representative of the changes we want to see, the better off we all are. And we're going to lose a bunch, but we're also going to win a bunch too. And I will always, always, always believe that it was always worth trying. And in fact, it's so important that we don't give up because people do not understand. No, even if you don't see a way, because ways emerge, moments emerge. I was not supposed to get elected to Congress by any stretch of the imagination. I was insane.
You rarely hear that from a congressional leader. I was insane.
No, I mean, like it's not just a cute story. I was wiping down a bar and asking people to vote for me. I wasn't just like, it wasn't like a summer job I had once. I was not supposed to win. The guy I was running against spent $3 million against me. I was getting like $2 in my paycheck once a week because I was working off tips and they take it all out, like, but things happen in America.
Right.
This is still a place of
But see,
possibility.
the promise of the possible, and that's what gives you that feeling that the fight can pay off. But I think for the most part, that fight is you have no other option. We always talk about that idea, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. But what they don't tell you is it doesn't bend by natural forces. Gravity is not what bends that. And there are people who are bending that fucker back the other way. And it is effort. It is work. And I thank you so much for spending the time with us today. And it's really been a wonderfully invigorating conversation for me to hear your passion and to hear the fight that you have and the direction you're going in. I guess the final question is, how do you feel about the confidence that the Democrats are being honest with themselves about where they actually are, and B, have the vision and wherewithal to begin that process that you're talking about redefining it in a way that's more responsive to the people they purport to represent?
Yeah. I mean, I have a weird relationship with the Democratic Party.
Friends with benefit. Yeah, I get it. I get
exactly.
it. It's fine.
It's kind of like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, right? And I think the foot out that I have is the foot that is very attuned to people. And the foot in that I have is, it's still the coalition that helps people, in my view. And it's a coalition that we all have to be part of. And so to me, I do think there's, as you mentioned, I do think that there is a little bit of this lost at sea moment happening. But as you said, I see that not as a reason for despair. I see it as a tremendous opportunity. And I've been a wrecking ball in the past. And I am also, I think that's one of the tools. So I believe in the toolbox, right? And sometimes you need a wrecking ball. Sometimes you need a hammer. Sometimes you need a wrench. And I think in this moment, it's a tremendous window of opportunity for efficacy.
Yes.
Whoever is most effective is where the momentum is going to go. And so me, I'm just trying shit out. Like, I'm just trying shit out, and I'm just in the batting cage, and I'm just waiting for a dinger. Right. And then I
got to tell you, there's so many metaphors. I don't even know what to do anymore. I've got a toolkit and a batting cage, and I don't know what the hell's happening.
That's what it's going to take, just to throw in everything at it.
All those different things. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, New York's 14th district. Thank you so much for spending the time with us today. I really appreciate it. Hope to see you again soon.
Totally. Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
All right. Bye-bye.
So he's got a little more here, but it's just him like talking to his people, and it's more of John making his like kind of cringy jokes. But I like I said, I kind of watched that a little bit yesterday. I just kind of had it on in the background while I was doing other shit. So I didn't really tune all in, but I could hear the energy, and I could hear, some of the things they were talking about, and I just some really good based takes. We as progressive Democrats, we're really lucky to have AOC.
We are.
And I mean, my God, like in whatever capacity, I don't know that she'll ever be president. She may never be, and I think that that's an okay thing. If that
as
is
long
the
as she
way
advocates some change. Yeah.
Well, she's always going to be. She's now like going to be a permanently like just established progressively democratic voice. And I mean, there's her influence on the party will last a lifetime. I think. I really do. She's just such an influential person and leader. Humble beginnings, all that good shit. She's just great. And I thought that their talk was really good. I think Jon Stewart, despite that he's maybe not as funny as he once was, I'm not putting the whatever the carriage, whatever. I'm not switching the horse on the carriage. I forget the exact term, but you know what I mean. Like I'm not putting the cart before the horse. That's what it is.
Yeah.
But you know, in terms of as she's saying, you know, this is the time to be throwing shit against the wall to see what sticks, right? And they've, you know, this type of conversation is what I think is leading to that. But you know, we while we were watching that video, we talked about, you know, trying to be optimistic that one day, you know, our generation, Gen Y, Gen Z, that one day they will be the ones to take the torch and to be the holders of power. You know, and it made me think of this guy's video, Chris Valenti. I you know, I've loved this guy. He's been on TikTok for a while. I don't remember, my wife is thinking that he's a teacher, and I don't recall that. If he isn't a teacher, if he isn't a history teacher, that's like what his calling was, because this guy knows history like crazy. He knows World War I, he knows World War II. This guy knows a lot. And he's very versed on, like, you know, how fascism rose in Europe and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got a lot of commentary on things right now. And I believe this was a video he uploaded on Inauguration Day or very close to it, maybe the day after. But I thought this was very well spoken, very inspiring. So we'll kind of leave the people here in the stream on this. It's a very good video from Chris.
Cooked? How cooked are we? Are we even gonna make it to 2030? Yes! Yes, we are! You wanna know why I know that? Because we made it this fucking far. You think you're the first generation to think the end times are coming? You think you're the last generation to think the end times are coming? That is the most humane trait that you could possibly have. You're concerned because you love. And you know love is real because you are real. This planet, this existence, this species is about prevailing, especially in times that are scary. Suffering, misery, pain, that is part of the human condition. But you don't sit in it. You don't lament in it. You get up and you keep fucking pushing. You don't need to worry about the future not being there when it's your fucking job to create it. You are the future rulers of this nation, the future rulers of this planet. You can't sit here and ignore what's going on around you, because one day the sword will be passed to you.
There we go. I'll probably watch that MAGA video some other time, but like, I don't know, you know, like, it's just, I think especially at the end, it's like, you know, don't lament or worry about the future when it is your fucking job to create it. Like,
Yeah.
You know, we're like, I'm in my 30s, right? I forget that being in your 30s, despite how it feels on my body right now,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, still very young, still have plenty of time to do things, make changes, and see it through to the world. Man, that guy just has a way of stringing a sentence together in such a way that just creates such an inspiring sort of message.